You know, there was the Vietnamese, the blacks, and the whites, and Hispanics, and then our group, the stars of our movie, which it's this mixed bag. Vin Diesel's a mixed bag. Paul Walker's can't get any whiter than Paul Walker. Jordana Brewster's Hispanic. You know, it was this world of people who chose to be a family because they chose it, not because they were. So it was this family of criminals and street racers versus the other tribes. So you could say that, in a sense, the customs, the clothes, the language, all of that was, you know, thought of, in my mind, as a kind of anthropological examination. Same with Triple X, which was the tribe of extreme sports, which is a very different group of guys and girls who do that stuff. They have a whole different way of thinking than us who are afraid of getting hurt. I remember talking to Matt Hoffman, who was one of the great BMX X Games champions, and he did this vert ramp stunt, being towed at 50 miles an hour by a truck, and then tried to do this vert ramp stunt, and he wound up breaking a lot of bones in his jaw and all this stuff. And then he went out, as soon as he could, he went out and tried it again. And I said to him, you know, how do you deal with this? You're going to do something that has a high probability of pain and destruction to your body and so on. How do you face it? And he said, quote, "I've learned to put fear in a very small place." And that was very enlightening, and that's the kind of thing anthropologists try to get, is how a cultural affect is really carried out and what it means to the member of that tribe. This idea that you could shrink fear to a place that it doesn't bother you. So even though you know you're going to break your arm and collarbone and teeth and all that, you're still going to do it, you know. And so anthropology was a big key. But another lucky thing happened is, like, when I was a sophomore, this Universal TV movie that Universal was making came to a small town in Massachusetts near Boston, and the minute I heard they were coming to town, I ran over to where they were staying, and I camped out on the director's door. The director's named Daniel Petrie. He's the father of the guy who did Beverly Hills Cop, Daniel Petrie Jr. But Dan Sr. was the nicest man you'd ever want to meet. And I sat outside his office in this motel till he would see me, like 6 hours. And finally I had a minute with him, and I handed him one of my student films that I was making in 16 millimeter. I graduated from 8 millimeter with a little hand-wind Bolex. And I said, look at this, I really like to be your assistant, because I want to learn. You don't have to pay me, I just want to be your gopher. And after he saw the film, he said, okay. And so the day I saw him do the first shot, which was a dolly crane shot, and in those days cranes were not light and like techno cranes and giraffes and all the stuff we have today. It was a big counterweighted crane on big boards that they had laid. And you know, Dan, in those days, the director, there was no video tap. You sat next to the operator and you watched the scene evolve, and you turned to your operator. Your operator would either say, we got it, or we don't have it. But you had to train your own eyes to put the frame around things, because you didn't run to a monitor or you didn't play it back, right? It was film. So it was a whole different sort of working process when you can't check the playback, which is now a big part of everything we do in features and television. So the minute I saw him up there, I went, you know, I want that. I really want that badly. And in my senior year, I was dating a girl who was going to Sarah Lawrence, and she was taking a course of this professor that she raved about, and I went down on these Tuesdays to audit the course. And of course the course was Joseph Campbell. And once I began to see myths and stories through the Joseph Campbell prism, I really knew how I was going to approach making movies in Hollywood. And when I graduated, I wrote to Dan and I said, is there a job for me? And he said, funny you should ask that. There's a guy coming to Boston who went to Harvard Law. He's a big producer. He's looking for a young guy to work with him. And I met him at a hotel. His name was Martin Juro. He had produced Breakfast at Tiffany's and The Pink Panther. And he said, can you write a script? And I went, of course. I had never read a script, never seen one. And I had already sold myself as a screenwriter to him. And he flew me to Texas, and I met with Carl Malden. I wrote a script. The first job I had was writing a script for Carl Malden, which didn't go.